When I was a child, I lived in a small village with my parents, my grandmother, and my younger sister. Our house was made of bricks, with a tin roof and a big mango tree in front. Life in the village was slow and simple. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of birds singing outside my window. The sun would rise slowly, painting the sky with orange and pink colors. I would stretch my arms, wash my face at the pump outside, and then help my mother in the kitchen. She always made hot tea and rice with vegetables. After breakfast, I would pack my school bag and walk to school with my sister. Our school was not big, just 3 classrooms and a playground, but I loved going there. I loved learning new words, solving math problems, and reading books with pictures. My best friend in school was Ravi. He lived just 2 houses away from mine. We always sat together in class and shared our snacks during the break. He liked drawing, and I liked writing. Sometimes, we made little books together. I would write a story, and he would draw the pictures. We dreamed of making a real book one day, with a cover and pages and our names on it. We didn't know how to make a real book, but we liked to dream. Our teacher, Miss Mira, was kind and soft-spoken. She always said, "If you believe in your dreams, one day they will come true." I believed her. I wanted my stories to be read by others. I wanted to become a writer. It sounded like magic to me. In the evenings, after school, I helped my father in the garden. He grew tomatoes, chilies, onions, and coriander. I liked touching the soil and watching small green plants grow slowly, day by day. Sometimes, we found worms or frogs in the garden, and I would watch them jump and move. Nature always made me curious. After we finished, I would wash my hands and sit under the mango tree. That tree was my favorite place. I would sit there with my notebook and write small stories. Stories about animals that could talk, or a boy who found a treasure in the forest, or a little girl who could fly. I didn't know if they were good stories, but they made me happy. One day, something special happened. There was a writing competition in our school. Miss Mira told everyone to write a story about kindness. I got excited. That night, I sat under the mango tree and thought hard. I wrote about a poor boy who found a lost puppy and took care of it. He had no money for food, but he shared his own meal with the puppy every day. One day, the puppy helped him find a lost wallet with money inside, and the boy used it to buy food for his family and the puppy. I liked my story. I showed it to my mother. She smiled and kissed my head. She said, "This is beautiful. I'm proud of you." Her words made me feel like I had already won. I gave my story to Miss Mira the next day. A week later, she announced the winners in the assembly. My heart beat fast. When she said my name, I couldn't believe it. My legs were shaking as I walked to the front. She gave me a small medal and a notebook as a prize. Everyone clapped. I looked at Ravi, and he gave me a big smile. That was the first time I felt like I was really a writer. From that day, I started writing more. I carried my notebook everywhere. I wrote at school, at home, and even while waiting for the bus. I wrote about anything and everything. It didn't matter if it made sense. I just wanted to write. As time passed, I started keeping my stories in a special folder. It grew thicker every month. My grandmother, who could not read, used to ask me to read my stories to her. She would sit on the floor and listen with a smile, sometimes closing her eyes like she was seeing the story in her mind. I loved those moments. She once told me, "You don't need to see the world to travel. Just listen to a good story." Her words stayed with me. One rainy evening, while thunder rolled in the sky, we all sat together indoors with candles lit. The power was out. My father said, "Tell us a story." So, I read one from my folder. It was about a boy who found a magic umbrella that could fly. My sister laughed at the funny parts. My parents listened closely. That night, even without electricity or television, we were happy. When I turned 12, a guest came to our village. He was a writer from the city and came to talk to the students about books and writing. He had written many books and even had his photo on the back cover. I listened carefully when he spoke. He said, "The best stories come from your heart. Don't try to sound smart. Just be honest." That advice stayed with me. After his talk, I went to him and showed him one of my stories. He read it slowly and then looked at me with a smile. "You have something special," he said. "Keep writing." I felt like my chest would burst with joy. That evening, I told everyone at home what he said. My mother hugged me and said, "I always knew it." Years passed, and I kept writing. Some of my stories were printed in school magazines. My friends started asking me to write stories for their projects. I didn't mind. I liked sharing. I also liked helping others with writing. I became known as the story boy. That made me happy. But deep inside, I still had a dream. I wanted to write a real book, one that people could buy in a shop, one with my name on the cover. I didn't know how it would happen, but I didn't stop dreaming. I kept writing, kept reading, and kept learning. Every time I wrote a new story, I felt closer to that dream. I knew that dreams take time, but I was not in a hurry. I just wanted to keep walking. One day, when I was around 16, something changed. My school held a big event where students from other schools also came. It was called the Young Creators Festival. They had music, dance, painting, and even a short story competition. I was nervous, but I entered. I printed out my story, checked it many times, and gave it to the teacher who was collecting the entries. It was a story about a blind girl who helped a lost dog find its way home. I liked the story because it showed that even people who seem weak can do something strong. The results were going to be announced on the last day of the festival. I couldn't think about anything else during those 3 days. I kept wondering, what if they don't like it? What if my story isn't good enough? But I kept reminding myself why I wrote. I didn't write for a medal. I wrote because I loved it. On the final day, they called all the participants to the stage. A tall man in a suit held a paper in his hand and started reading the names. I stood quietly in the corner, my heart beating like a drum. Then I heard him say my name. I blinked. Was it real? People clapped. My friends pushed me forward, and I walked slowly to the stage, feeling like I was floating. The man smiled and gave me a certificate, a book, and a pen. But more than that, he said, "This story touched my heart." That one sentence meant more than all the gifts. I looked at the crowd and saw my teacher clapping, my classmates cheering, and I felt something deep inside me grow stronger. I felt like I was no longer just a dreamer. I was becoming something more. After that event, I started writing more seriously. I read books about writing. I watched videos about authors and how they write their stories. I wrote one story every week. Some were short, some were long, some were good, some were not. But I wrote without stopping. I created a small blog online and started posting my stories there. At first, only my friends read them. Then, slowly, other people started reading too. Some wrote comments like, "This story made me smile," or "I felt the same way as your character." I saved all those comments. They reminded me that words can connect hearts, even from far away. One day, I got an email from a small publisher. They had read my blog and liked my stories. They asked if I wanted to make a collection of my stories and publish it as a book. I read the email again and again. I thought it was a dream, but it was real. I talked to my parents, and they were so happy. My mom cried. My dad said, "I told you dreams come true." I worked with the publisher for 2 months. I chose my best stories, edited them, and even wrote a little message at the start of the book. And then finally it happened. I held my first book in my hands, with my name on the cover.